Thank you, Professor Singh, for your very kind introduction. Hello, everybody. Without wasting much time, I just jump directly to the presentation. And the topic of my presentation is the concept of the 5 obstacles and the salvation of women in the Lotus Sutra. Unfortunately, I have no slides with images and other things. I have some, but we are running out of time, so I will skip. And I think my colleagues, Professor Inouye and Professor Dr. Michael Conway has already shown a lot of images. So this time you have to bear with me with only the presentation, literary presentation of some texts. Monastic life was the core of the religious practice in the early Buddhism, where women were considered to be a hindrance to observe the practice. In the Samyutta Nikaya, it is said, Itti malang brahmacharyasa, which means women are the stain of the religious life. A number of Buddhist canonical texts suggest discrimination against women, such as the Buddha's reluctance to allow women to enter the Sangha, the subordinate status of the bhikkhunis under the 8 strict conditions, Atthagarudhamma, 5 obstructions of a woman, her incapability to become a Buddha, and so on. Among all these, the episode of Mahapajapati Gautami asking the Buddha to allow her and her fellow women to renounce the household and live an ordained life following the teachings of the Dhamma and Vinaya, and the Buddha's reluctance to accept the women in the Sangha is often discussed to indicate the discrimination of women in Buddhism. However, once the women were accepted in the Sangha, so far as the attainment of enlightenment is concerned, there was no difference between a man and a woman practitioner. In the Pali Nikayas and Chinese Agama texts, we find enough examples of women arahats that confirm this fact. The Therigatha alone contains beautiful verses depicting the experience of the enlightened women and proves that the door to Nibbana was open for the men and women as well, as expressed in the following verse from the Samyutta Nikaya. Yassa etadisang yanang itthiya purisassava save etena yanena Nibbana seva santiketi. The concept of 5 obstacles and its countermeasure. With the emergence of Mahayana Buddhism in around 1st century AD, the focus of enlightenment had a shift from the Arahathood to Bodhisattvahood and Buddhahood. Accordingly, it influenced the notion of enlightenment of the women as well, and it was a matter of concern if a woman can become a Buddha. In the background of this problem, as it is said, there was an established thought that a woman cannot become a Buddha because of the 5 obstacles clinging to her since her birth as a woman. The 5 obstacles are the 5 highest or powerful ranks that a woman cannot attain, that is the rank of a Brahma, a Shakra, a universal monarch, a guardian deity or Mara, and a Buddha. Scholars say that it was already established before the Mahayana Buddhism. In Pali texts also, we find reference to it as 5 impossibilities, that is, 5 places which are impossible for a woman to attain. However, a close textual examination of it says that it was a later interpolation. According to Professor Yuichi Kajiyama, it was established during the sectarian Buddhism. The early Mahayana texts such as the Saddharma Pundarika Sutra, the Ashtasahasrika Prajnaparamita Sutra, the larger and smaller Sukhavati Vyuha Sutra, and many more, being concerned about this problem, thought of a countermeasure that if these 5 obstacles are inherent in a woman, a woman can achieve the Buddhahood by transforming her body to a male body. This is expressed with the phrase henjonanshi in Japanese, which literally means transformation to a man or to a male body. I would like to explain it as enumerated in the Saddharma Pundarika Sutra, which is popularly known as the Lotus Sutra. The 5 obstacles and the salvation of women in the Lotus Sutra. In the 11th chapter of the Saddharma Pundarika Sutra, it is called Stupa Sangdarshana Parivarta, we find the following episode. Once Manjushri Bodhisattva preached the profound teachings of the Saddharma Pundarika Sutra in the ocean, in the abode of the Naga king, Sagara. When Manjushri told to Prajnakuta Bodhisattva that hearing the teaching, the 8-year-old daughter of Sagara, the Naga king, was fit to attain the supreme perfect enlightenment, Samyak Sambodhi, Prajnakuta Bodhisattva expressed his doubt and said that even Shakyamuni Buddha strived diligently for thousands of kalpas, performed meritorious deeds, sacrificed his body for the beings, and only then could he become a perfectly enlightened one. So it was difficult for him to believe that the daughter of the Naga king was able to attain the supreme perfect enlightenment in a moment. Then immediately the daughter of the Naga king appeared and proclaimed that she had obtained the enlightenment, Sambodhi, and the Tathagata himself was witness to it. Hearing this, Venerable Shariputra showed his doubt, saying that it was not possible as there was no example of a woman attaining Buddhahood. Na chadyapi buddhattam prapnoti. Until today, no woman had achieved the following 5 ranks. That is the rank of a Brahma, a Shakra, a guardian deity of the 4 quarters, Maharaja, a universal monarch, Chakravartin, and a Bodhisattva who is incapable of sliding back, Avivartika Bodhisattva. Ultimately, the female sex of the daughter of the king Sagara disappeared, the male sex appeared, and she preached the Dharma as an enlightened one, endowed with 32 marks of a great being, Mahapurusha Lakshana. Thus, Prajnakuta Bodhisattva had doubts on her obtaining the supreme enlightenment in a moment, without any hardship, and Venerable Shariputra also had doubts, as attainment of the supreme enlightenment was very difficult for anyone, whosoever. At the same time, he was surprised too, because it was an unprecedented occurrence. This part of the Lotus Sutra is quoted very often as an example of gender discrimination in Buddhism. Here, attention should be paid to the term adyapi in Sanskrit, which means to this day, until today, still, yet, etc. If no woman has occupied these 5 places so far, it does not mean that she cannot attain it in the future. Instead of taking it as Venerable Shariputra's refusal to accept her enlightenment, we may simply interpret the statement as his astonishment. He questioned with astonishment for such a wonderful and incredible thing that he had never heard of before. The date of Saddharma Pundarika Sutra is around the 1st century AD. It was transmitted to China at an early age, and because of its popularity, soon translated into Chinese. There are 6 Chinese translations of it, but only 3 of them are extant. Those are Zhengfa Huaqing, in Japanese we call Shō Hokei Kyo, by Dharmaraksha in 286, and Maofalia Huaqing, Myoho Renge Kyo by Kumarajiva in 406, and Tianpin Mya Fa Lian Huaqing, Tempong Myoho Renge Kyo by Gyanagupta and Dharmagupta in 601. Let us examine the first 2 early translations. In the Sanskrit text of the Lotus Sutra, it is written 5 places or ranks, Panchasthanani. that a woman has not yet attained. When Dharmaraksha translated the Lotus Sutra into Chinese in 286 AD, he followed the Sanskrit interpretation and used the term Wu Wei, Goi, which means 5 places or ranks. But after him, the text was translated by Kumarajiva in 406 AD using a different expression. He used the term Wusang, Gosho, which means 5 obstructions or obstacles. Besides, Kumarajiva's translation adds the following comments. As a reply to the Naga King's daughter, Shariputra says, "You say that you will soon attain the highest path. This is difficult to believe. Why is this? Because the female body is polluted. It is not a fit vessel for the dharma. How can you attain the highest enlightenment?" So this part of translation is from Kubo and Yuama of 1993. Here we can see Kumarajiva's translation gives a reason to why a woman cannot become a Buddha, that is, because of her impure body. But according to the earliest textual tradition, the Buddha never made a distinction between a male body and a female body. Both of them are impure, asubha for him. Even his own body he characterizes as filthy, putikaya, as we find in the Samyutta Nikaya. In the path of brahmacharya, a woman is considered as a mala, stain, as I mentioned already. However, when fulfilling the brahmacharya, whether one is a man or a woman, the opposite sex is always filthy. This part of Shariputra's comment is neither found in the Sanskrit texts nor in the translation of Dharmaraksha. Various reasons are stated, such as his translation is based on a manuscript from Kucha. The Devadatta chapter, where his discriminatory statement is written, did not exist originally in the translation of Kumarajiva, etc. With all these ambiguities, the fact is that it has been handed down to us as Kumarajiva's translation and is used widely. However, one thing is evident, that when the text traveled from India to China through Central Asia, it was influenced by the local thoughts of the time, and later interpolations of gender discrimination could be possible. It shows how place and time affected translating and interpreting the Buddhist texts. Five obstacles and influence of the Lotus Sutra in Japan. As I mentioned already, that the Saddharma Pundarika Sutra was transmitted to China as early as in the 3rd century AD, as it is confirmed from the translation of Dharmaraksha in 286. It was then transmitted to Korea in 4th century AD, and then to Japan, most probably in 6th century AD, with the introduction of Buddhism to Japan. Although Dharmaraksha's translation is earlier and much closer to the Sanskrit text, but Kumarajiva's translation gained popularity in China and later in Japan too, because his translation was easy to understand. With this popularity, it seems the concepts of the 5 obstacles and the impure body of the women were founded strongly as well in Japan. Women grieving on having the 5 obstacles and wishing to get rid of it by transforming them to a male body that ultimately leads them to the attainment of enlightenment is narrated in many Japanese classical literatures, like the tale of Prince Genji of the beginning of 11th century, the tale of the Heike of 13th century, and many more. The 5 obstacles were not known commonly in ancient Japan. It appeared in the Nara period, that is 8th century, and from Heian period, from 8th to 12th century onwards, it penetrated the society and culture until the present day, leaving its impression particularly in various spheres of social and religious activities. So I present here one example of the influence of Lotus Sutra, focusing on the episode of the daughter of the Naga King Sagara. There is a Buddhist ceremony in Japan called Hokke Hakko, which is a series of lectures on the 8 volumes of the Lotus Sutra on 8 sessions. It was first organized by Huiming, a Buddhist monk of Tang Dynasty. In Japan, it was organized for the first time in 796 by Gonso. He did it in order to perform the memorial service for the deceased mother of a fellow monk called Eiko of Iwauchi Temple. On the third day of this ceremony, the Devadatta chapter of the Lotus Sutra is chanted. This chapter is well known for the attainment of Buddhahood of the evil people, sinful people, represented by Devadatta, and attainment of Buddhahood by women represented by the daughter of Naga king, Sagara, where the 5 obstacles and Naga daughter's transformation into a man to attain the supreme enlightenment is narrated. It is known as the Itsumaki no Hi or Gokan no Hi, the day of the 5th volume of the Lotus Sutra, as the Devadatta chapter is in the 5th volume. The ceremony of this day is the most magnificent ritual part of the entire ceremony. There is a temple in Yamagata Prefecture called Ryuoson Zempoji, where the Naga king Sagara of the Lotus Sutra is worshipped with his 3rd daughter, who represents the enlightenment of the women in the Lotus Sutra, even though after transforming her body into a male one. So this is the temple, and this is written the Naga king, Lord Naga king, perhaps I should translate. And here this is the name of the Naga king and his daughter, Naga daughter. So I should now conclude my talk, and in several of early Mahayana sutras like the Ashtasahasrika Pragyaparamita Sutra, Sukhavati Vibha Sutra, and other Pure Land texts, special attention is paid to the attainment of the Buddhahood and rebirth in the Pure Land of a woman. It was a kind of women's liberation movement of the time, applying the method of transforming to a male body. Here also the concept of the 5 obstacles exists in the background. With this notion of the 5 obstacles in the background, the early Mahayana texts specifically stressed on the salvation of women and their rebirth in the Pure Land. Most probably the concept of 5 obstacles was used to highlight the possibility for the salvation of women, even women who have polluted bodies, and 5 obstacles can attain the Buddhahood, a key point of Mahayana Buddhism. But unfortunately, in the course of time, the notion of the 5 obstacles was given more importance and the enlightenment of the women than the enlightenment of the women. Late Professor Waka Shirato of Otani University says, it seems that the issue of attaining Buddhahood, overcoming the 5 obstacles, which the Lotus Sutra originally intended to say, has instead come to be perceived emphasizing the women with 5 obstacles, not the attainment of enlightenment. Thus, intentionally or not, sometimes we find the different interpretations of the original ideas, which in the long run may give birth to many social problems. With this, I would like to conclude my talk. Thank you so much.